Hey everyone, today I am reviewing Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal. First published in 2013, the series follows the adventures of new character Kamala Khan, an average Pakistani-American teenager who is exposed to Terrigen Mist after sneaking out to a party and transforms into an inhuman, gaining the ability to shapeshift, making herself bigger, smaller, stronger, or even changing into a different form entirely. Idolizing Captain Marvel, she decides to take up the mantle of Ms. Marvel, the hero's former title, and fight crime in her hometown of Jersey City. Kamala Khan is an interesting and fairly unique character. In many ways, she's your average teenager dealing with average teenage problems, but she's also funny, at times goofy, and surprisingly optimistic. Her powers, though very similar to those of Mr. Fantastic, are also a great source of visual humour, with Kamala embiggening her hands to make them more powerful or stretching her legs to run further. Complementing this is some amazing artwork. The softly drawn characters fit with a story that is more fun than serious, and also give Kamala's world its own distinct feel. Added to that, there's a lot of visual humour and Easter eggs. Most panels will have a joke or two in them somewhere you might miss out on if you don't look closely enough. Kamala's outfit, while fairly standard for a superhero, is also quite simple but effective in its design. I personally really like the scarf. I think it's a nice touch. Adds a bit more personality. Probably the biggest advantage for any new series, No Normal leaves the story hanging, but with plenty of room for development of the character and her world in future stories. Now, touching on the negatives, the story itself is fairly uninspired. It's an origin story, which makes sense, being that it's her first outing, but there isn't really much in it that makes it unique or memorable. There are a few times where opportunities are presented to take the story further, but are shied away from, possibly to keep the tone light. The most notable of these being a point where Kamala is actually shot, an event that ought to be traumatic, but is actually dismissed quite quickly. Now, this could be a cultural thing, seeing as how in the UK guns are far less prevalent. But it struck me as a bit of a strange moment. It seemed kind of out of place that she could just recover from it, even with her superpowers, and not be a bit more seriously affected. I don't know. The story's main antagonist is essentially a punk kid who is just a lackey for another villain that, in fairness, the story does at least do a decent job of foreshadowing. I really enjoyed No More. I thought it was a fun story that introduces a new and interesting character with a background that isn't very often depicted in media. I'll readily admit it was hard to be objective with so much hype surrounding the character. I'd heard a lot of praise about the character and its significance, as well as a fair few detractors calling it simply diversity for diversity's sake. I can't say I agree that Kamala is an example of some kind of forced diversity. Though her Muslim upbringing at times feels incidental, it still influences her decisions in the story. However, it also doesn't detract from the storytelling either. At its core, No Normal tells the story of a teenager asserting herself and rebelling against her parents. I feel as though Kamala is a character that anyone can relate to, and that this is a story anyone can enjoy. That was my review, and I will be reviewing the second volume very soon. So look out for that video, and I will see you another time. Farewell.